as displacement over time. But when I entered Agile world, I learned velocity is calculated for a Scrum team as well. So today, let's talk about what velocity means for a Agile team, why it need to be calculated, and how it get affected. If I put the two definition of velocity, velocity in physics and velocity in Agile world side by side, velocity in simple terms means displacement over time. Velocity for an Agile team means the amount of work done by the team in a given amount of time, or it's the amount of work from a requirement phase to a final working software phase that a team does in 2 to 3 weeks, which we call a sprint. Why we calculate velocity is because it gives predictability or capacity planning. Predictability to all the stakeholders involved in the entire process. Expectation to the external stakeholder what they can expect from a Scrum team. For a product owner, how much he can assign to his team. For a Scrum Master, how much he can plan for his team. And for the team, how much they can accept as a team in terms of work. So for example, if a team have an average velocity of 30 story points in the last 6 sprint, each one, whether it's an external stakeholder, a product owner, a Scrum Master, and the team member knows what can be expected in the 7th sprint. Now let's see how velocity of a team get affected. To me, there are 3 factors. Number 1, people. Number 2, process. And number 3, role. In people, number of people within a team affects the velocity of the team. So if there are less number of people, the velocity of the team will be lesser. But at the same time, when the number of people are huge, the coordination task will decrease the velocity of the team. Number 2 is the skill set of the team. If the team is quite skilled in the task they need to perform, then they will be able to perform much more work or story points in a given sprint. And number 3, the availability of team members. Often at times during holidays or long leaves, the velocity of the team decreases. The second factor is based on process. In process, for me, the number 1 factor is the unclear acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria is a statement that need to be fulfilled to ensure a story get completed. It usually get resolved during the sprint planning, and if it is not clear, then it affects the velocity of the team. Second criteria is prioritization. If the prioritization of user story changes during the sprint because of change in business requirement or because the product owner might have missed it during sprint planning, then it affects the velocity of the team. And number 3 is unresolved dependencies or unresolved impediments. There is an unresolved dependency or unresolved impediment, then it affects the velocity of the team. And the third factor is role-based. There are certain organizations that still believes Scrum Master role does not add value, or it can be optional, or we can have a shared Scrum Master. And in those situations, factors like team doing multitasking affects the velocity of the team. Team getting interrupted from outside world and there is no dedicated Scrum Master affects the velocity of the team. And the third condition here is the team dynamics are not being taken care of because there is no dedicated Scrum Master within the team. So now you know what velocity means for a Scrum team, why it need to be calculated, and how it get affected. Let me ask you two questions based on what we discussed. Number one, suppose your team is delivering 40 story points for the last 6 months. What do you think the team will deliver in the 7 month, provided they have a level of expertise in the task, in the stories they are already performing? Please pause the video and put your answer in the comment section below. To answer this question, it depends. So now, if your team is expert enough in resolving certain stories, performing certain tasks, it might reduce story points for already existing stories. So for example, your average story points was 40 earlier, and now the team decide that it can do all these tasks with 32 story points. They will still have 8 story point as their bandwidth left. To an outside world, it might appear that the story points in total remains the same, but now they are performing more work. It can also happen that the team keep the story point 40 as constant and still can take up more story points because they are now more skilled in doing or performing these tasks. So for example, earlier it was 40, now it will add up to 48, which means story points should not be used to check or evaluate efficiency of a team over a period of time. My second question, can velocity be used to compare two different teams performing the same task? Please pause the video and put your answer in the comment section below. The answer to this question is no. Now, let's suppose there are two teams. One comprises of expert and other comprises of newcomers. Expert and newcomer given same task. Expert will rate these stories as low, whereas newcomers will rate this story much higher based on the complexity level. To the outside world, based on just numbers, it might appear that team B is giving more value or more work, but it remains the same. So in totality, it's not just the number that need to be looked for, but the amount of work the team is doing, which brings to a simple point. Velocity should not be used to check efficiency within the team or across the teams. I hope with this you are clear what velocity stands for, why we use it, and how it get affected. And I said clearly it should be used only for predictability and capacity planning for your team. And at the end, I can only say predictability can give you what can happen in future. It will not tell you what will happen in future. I hope you like this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on LinkedIn, and I see you next week.